They say never mix friendship with ambition. I thought combining them built trust. Turns out it only builds targets closer. My name is Kara Linton, 32, Senior Account Manager at Anders & Ross. 8 years of meetings and deadlines had taught me how to survive a company that smiles while it bleeds you. Back then my anchor was Sophie Holt, best friend, drinking partner in presentations. People called us the twins of marketing. She dreamed, I delivered. Together we were unstoppable, until both of us reached for the same rung on the ladder. It happened quietly at first. An unfinished file here, a client left off an email thread there. Then came the whispers about a new position, Director of Accounts. Only one seat available. Over nachos one night Sophie grinned, "May the best woman win." It sounded friendly, it wasn't. I began to notice patterns. Numbers I entered changed overnight. Drafts corrupted. My boss Martin Eldridge called me in, frowning. "There are discrepancies in your accounts, Kara. You're slipping." I promised to fix it, but the next day Sophie handed me coffee and said sweetly, "I covered for you." That was the moment I started keeping copies of everything. One folder became 5. Emails, spreadsheets, audio memos, every file stamped and stored. Soon the picture formed itself. Each time success approached, she introduced a flaw small enough to blame on fatigue, big enough to stain my record. When the Pitchwell Pharma project arrived, a $2 million account, Martin named me lead and Sophie co-lead. 3 days before the presentation the deck vanished from our server, backups corrupted. Sophie recovered it, presenting a version that matched mine slide for slide except for the final credit, lead, Sophie Holt. Support, Kara Linton. I said nothing. Not then. The night before, I had copied my own draft to an offline drive. Metadata doesn't lie. Presentation morning looked like a wedding for office egos, flowers, espresso machines, and middle-aged anxiety. Sophie dazzled them, borrowing every sentence I'd built. And when applause threatened to take her crown, I stood and asked softly, "Could you open the version history, please?" The screen didn't explode, but the truth did. My initials flashed on every original edit. Silence burned the air. Martin's face changed from pride to survival instinct. When the meeting ended, Sophie fled before the elevator arrived. She had loaned me humiliation once. I'd returned it with interest. That could have been the ending, but revenge has patience. I smiled through Martin's lecture about teamwork, told him I'd help our department heal. He believed me. Men like him always believe calm means compliance. That night I encrypted everything on a private server. The evidence was safe and Sophie's panic had just begun. A month passed. She swung between remorse and self-pity. I captured every apology on an audio app, all those, I only wanted recognition, confessions like pearls for later. Then I began feeding her minor mis-entries, errors harmless to projects but traceable to her login. Within weeks IT logs bloomed with her fingerprints. When the audit came, Martin called her in. Through the glass wall I saw the collapse, the shoulders first, then the bravado. She left without her badge. Martin told me later, "You could have warned me." I smiled. I thought she was my friend. I became his new director of accounts. He congratulated me like he'd trained another product. But victory tasted hollow. Sophie's empty desk felt louder than meeting applause. 2 weeks into my new role, an anonymous email arrived, "Enjoy your crown." Attached, a video of the presentation, me exposing her, captioned in her handwriting, "Director Liar creates drama for promotion." It spread across internal feeds in hours. The ghost still had teeth. Martin panicked. "Fix it," he said. I did. Press releases, internal statements, algorithmic cleanup, digital bleach. By Friday the internet found a new scandal. But I kept the file. Insurance. Sophie disappeared from every platform, and for a moment I almost missed her. Warriors without enemies get bored. 3 months later HR received anonymous accusations that I had bribed staff and destroyed evidence. The forgeries were almost perfect. Almost. Metadata exposed font codes unique to her old system. She had reinvented herself into my shadow. I decided to show her I was still the better narrator. Anders and Ross hosted its annual summit that fall. Press, sponsors, the entire hierarchy under one chandelier. I titled my keynote, Integrity in Digital Marketing. When the lights dimmed, I took the stage in quiet gray. Integrity isn't about never falling, I began. It's about resisting the urge to push someone else off the ladder. Heads nodded. Martin looked proud, unaware of the trap tightening around him. 1 click later, the screen behind me displayed security graphs tracking every recent breach, each tagged with metadata traces identical to Sophie Holt's device signature. For good measure, I played an anonymous training clip, her own recorded voice whispering. I changed numbers so Kara would slow down. Gasps filled the hall. Martin half rose, sweating. I simply smiled. Security training works best with real examples. Somewhere on the livestream counter a user disconnected. I knew who. For the first time, my revenge felt complete and empty at once, like a song ending mid-note. But ghosts reform faster than guilt. Days later I received a photo of my streaming setup circled in red, her way of saying she was watching me again. Then came subtle hauntings. Password reset alerts, idle cars outside my building. Nothing provable, everything loud inside the mind. I reached out first. We keep hurting each other for nothing, I typed. Meet me. 1 conversation. She agreed. At the Civic Lounge we sat like 2 versions of regret. You won, she said. Why keep destroying me? I don't destroy you, Sophie. You just press record on your own demise. Then she told me something I hadn't expected. Martin built it. He fed us against each other. He wanted to see which of us would break first. The words rewired my memory. All that cruel competition, the deadlines, the missing files, maybe none of it was accident. He had been experimenting with us. Then prove it, I said. And for once we became teammates again. Days later she sent me archived emails from his private drive, keep the contest alive till selection. He had recreated the ancient gladiator system with PowerPoints and quarterly bonuses. Together we built a timeline of his manipulations, plus accounts showing offshore payments to competitors. Enough to destroy him entirely. And this time we decided to share the spotlight. At the next board review I presented ethics concerns. Slide after slide of his emails flashed while colleagues absorbed the show like a slow-motion accident. Martin shouted about context. I stood silent. The best revenge speech is no speech at all. By week's end he was gone, for personal reasons. Sophie and I didn't speak again for months. Revenge had finally run out of plot. When she did call, her voice was cooler. Still climbing? She asked. No, I said. I found the roof. Then the line went dead, for good this time. I resigned a week later and left everything, title, office, best chair in the building. Freedom doesn't trend but it works. Half a year passed. An email from the company arrived asking me to assist their lawyers in a case against Martin. I handed over the records, smiled at their shock, and walked away again. No thank you needed. Some stories exist only to warn. I turned freelance, teach project ethics now. My students think I invented poise. I just burned apathy out of my system. Our first lecture is always called, "The Bug is the Boss." One of them asked, "So Ms. Linton, would you do it again?" "Yes," I answered, "but quicker." Months later a plain envelope appeared in my mailbox. Inside, I finished the course correction. "He's in court next month." Just like that, closure by post. I checked the news. Martin Eldridge, fraud and tax cases, testimony from whistleblowers. That was us. The unglamorous end of a glamorous war. Weeks later she appeared at my door, hair short, eyes tired. We drank tea in quiet truce. I told them everything, she said. They gave me immunity. Does that make me a hero or a coward? Maybe both, I said. Maybe that's the price of starting over. We shared one real laugh, the first since ambition corrupted our language, and she left. A year later I stood on a conference stage for a panel called, "Revenge versus Resolution." A woman in the audience asked, "How do you know when it's over?" I told her, "When you can tell it without rehearsal." And they understood. That night on the train home I opened a new file to prepare a lecture. Its title line read, "The Promotion Trap, Winning Wrong." Then I closed it. Some stories earn their rest. If any woman one day finds this story attached to my name, I want her to read these words. Don't measure career by titles, measure it by how many people you refuse to hurt while climbing. Because every ladder is a mirror, and each step shows you what you're becoming. Now I wake early, make coffee, watch sunlight paint the floor. Sometimes I scroll past company updates and see a new class of leaders smiling in photographs. No grudges, no ghosts. That's the point of rebuilt systems, to let the next people walk safe where you bled. When the cup is empty I look into its dark bottom and see my reflection, older, steadier, finally honest. I smile and say quietly, "Meeting adjourned."